Nation, welcome to the Monday Report. Pierre Poilievre is an odd duck, isn't he? He's a career politician who's made millions while never having a real job, largely, I've been told, by funding the purchase of properties in the Ottawa area and then renting them out to oil industry lobbyist connections he's made through the frequent Alberta-based conservative $5,000 per plate fundraiser he's attended. Keeping in mind that Pierre is an MP for Carleton, a suburb of Ottawa, Ontario, and hasn't lived in Alberta since Liberal Jean Chrétien was Prime Minister. A distinction you probably didn't know, since as many in his riding have pointed out, Pierre's rarely home and frequently promoting oil and gas, an industry that does nothing for his riding or constituents, except of course those oil lobbyists paying Pierre sweet tax-deductible rental incomes for residents that allegedly have made Pierre a multimillionaire. Prove me wrong. Oh, did I say it was a distinction you probably didn't know? Well, I sit corrected, because according to several recent news articles finally coming out about Pierre, and I say finally because all this vetting of him probably would have been more helpful the moment he announced he was running for Prime Minister of Canada, despite how things actually work, and definitely before he was elected leader of the official opposition. Anyway, according to all these now surfacing articles, Canadians' perception of Pierre is that of a panderer who consistently makes conflicting claims. Statements that he makes almost as if he's unaware of the internet or that people out there are actually paying attention to what he says. Yeah, I mean, here's a guy who one moment says his government will complete both the East and West pipelines, something that hasn't happened because of competing provincial jurisdictions. And the next says Alberta's Sovereignty Act will become redundant when he's in charge because his government will fully respect provincial jurisdiction. This is a guy who wants to fire the Bank of Canada's governor and set our monetary policy to guarantee an annual fixed 2% increase in Canada's money supply. Even though any economist will tell you that's the surest path to hyperinflation, the likes of which no country has seen since pre-Nazi Germany. Here's a guy promising both tax breaks and to balance the federal budget, something Harper tried to do for 9 years without ever even coming close. Here's a guy who wants an inquiry into why monetary and fiscal policy deviated from the norms during the past 3 years. Let me save you millions, PP. There was a global pandemic during which Russia began a war in Europe. You can write the $1 million check out to Duza Bear. And finally, this idiot moron wants an inquiry into perceived interference with the civil rights of freedom convoy protesters. Keep in mind, nearly all of which were provincially mandated restrictions, provincial constitutional jurisdictionally controlled, and that more than 70% of Canadians support the Trudeau government's action. And the majority of those who have issue with Trudeau's handling of it are mostly in the "what took so long" camp. No, and 99.99% of Canadian truckers, people who work in an industry with more regulations than any other, knew there was no point fighting the requirements since America had them also. And P.P. Le Pew also wants to know why monetary policy and public health decisions have been left with autonomous agencies free of political interference at both the provincial and federal level, instead of chaotically in the hands of meddling, weak-willed politicians that public opinion can affect. Hey Pierre, here's some free advice. If you want the support of Canadians, the inquiry you should be promising is the one into perceived interference with the civil rights of those Canadians forced to endure additional lockdowns, hardship, and loss of access to loved ones because anti-vaxxers wouldn't comply with simple health orders or do the patriotic thing and get the jab. After all, complying with laws which include temporary health orders is one of the only 4 obligations of citizenship actually written into the Canadian Charter of Rights. And now this.